When people talk about darkness, they usually imagine something distant, something dramatic, something with a clear warning sign. But real malice isn't loud, and it isn't theatrical. It's quiet, patient, and most dangerous when it looks harmless. And the moment you begin to see it clearly, everything around you shifts. Because manipulators don't freeze when exposed, they adapt. And what follows is a pattern as predictable as the sunrise if you know what to look for. So today, you're going to learn exactly how these people behave once they realize you figured them out. And more importantly, how to stay unshakable through every stage of their reaction. You feel the shift before you understand it. Something in their presence changes. An undertone, a subtle pressure, an invisible pull that crawls across your awareness. And suddenly their smile feels rehearsed. Their kindness feels calculated. Their voice feels like it's hiding something. This is the first sign, the energetic distortion. And Stoic wisdom teaches you not to panic, but to observe. Because your instinct isn't paranoia, it's perception sharpening. Then their questions change, not the content, but the intention behind them. They start probing you with sudden curiosity, asking about your plans, your conversations, your thoughts in a tone that feels too targeted to be casual. And this is not connection, it's reconnaissance, a manipulator's way of mapping the areas where they've lost leverage. And your best counter is to answer calmly and minimally, giving them zero emotional data to work with. Next, they try to disguise self-interest as presence, appearing in moments of convenience and disappearing whenever the situation demands actual loyalty. You'll notice they become consistent only when they want something from you. And Stoicism teaches you not to judge them, but to simply see the truth. People who value you don't vanish when you need them. And when manipulation doesn't work, they try to reduce your confidence with small, cutting remarks disguised as concern, making you feel irresponsible, naive, or slow. But a Stoic mind recognizes this tactic instantly. Attempts to lower your self-respect are meant to weaken your boundaries. So, your discipline is to stay unmoved. When you don't crumble, they shift again. They reinvent themselves, crafting emotional stories to rebuild your perception of them, giving you just enough drama, regret, or vulnerability to make you question your clarity. But the rule is simple. If someone only becomes reflective when they're caught, it's not reflection, it's strategy. And when that fails, they pretend not to understand anything you're confronting them about. Suddenly they're confused, surprised, shocked, or disappointed that you misread them, attempting to twist the situation so you feel guilty for recognizing the truth. But Stoic calm protects you. Truth doesn't need their approval. Then, when innocence doesn't work, they try to influence your emotions directly, offering advice that sounds caring but is designed to make you doubt yourself and rely on them. And once again, the Stoic principle applies. Anyone who tries to own your confidence is trying to own your freedom. And when pressure collapses, they'll attempt to overwhelm your resolve by multiplying their signals, multiple messages, unexpected gestures, sudden affection, all attempts to regain your attention and fracture your discipline. But you neutralize this by remaining steady, because consistency is your shield. And finally, they attack what matters most, your attention. They try to pull you back into old patterns, old conversations, old emotional loops, because attention is the door through which manipulation enters. And Stoic training teaches you the most powerful discipline of all. Where your attention goes, your power follows. When you stop feeding the dynamic, manipulators begin their next phase. They distort your sense of time, giving you sudden bursts of attention, followed by stretches of cold distance, hoping the inconsistency will make you chase their approval. But Stoicism teaches that stability must come from within, not from someone else's emotional weather. Then they escalate to psychological fog, contradictions, mixed signals, vague statements, anything that forces you to overthink. Because confusion is one of their oldest weapons, and your counter is simple. You stay rooted in what you directly observe, not what they imply. When confusion doesn't shake you, they turn to self-pity, portraying themselves as the wounded one, the misunderstood one, the abandoned one, hoping guilt will soften your boundaries. But guilt is a hook, and Stoic discipline reminds you that compassion is not slavery. If sympathy fails, they reach for nostalgia, resurrecting old memories or warm moments to pull at your emotions, trying to make you forget the pattern and remember the spark. But this is emotional bait. The past is not a reason to reopen a door you closed for your well-being. When nostalgia doesn't work, they shift to flattery, excessive praise, admiration, compliments that feel too sudden. too heavy, too precisely aimed at your insecurities. And this is not appreciation. It's leverage disguised as affection. Then comes the guilt logic trap. They use clever arguments to make you feel unreasonable for protecting yourself, twisting your desire for peace into accusations of coldness or unfairness. But logic without honesty is manipulation, and Stoic clarity keeps you immune. And if that tactic fails, they attempt the moral high ground, acting righteous, disciplined, or virtuous to make you feel inferior for stepping back. But remember, someone who needs to perform virtue is not practicing it. Next, they shift into controlled kindness, acts of generosity or support offered at precise moments to soften your stance. But if kindness comes with timing instead of consistency, it's not genuine. It's strategic. When gentle tactics fail, they start looking for cracks in your armor, observing your stress, your fatigue, your vulnerabilities, silently waiting for a moment when your guard is down. Because they know endurance breaks more people than pressure. But Stoic endurance is built exactly for this long game. And when even time doesn't weaken you, they escalate to emotional pressure, creating urgency, drama, or crisis to overwhelm your clarity and force a reaction. But your stillness becomes your shield, because no one can drag you into chaos unless you accept the invitation. When emotional pressure doesn't break you, manipulators switch to narrative control. They begin telling stories about you. Stories that reinterpret your actions in ways that make them look like the victim and you look unreasonable. And this is where many people collapse, because they fear being misunderstood. But Stoicism teaches a liberating truth. You are not responsible for the stories others tell to protect their ego. Then they attempt proximity resets, showing up physically or digitally with a sudden wave of friendliness, familiarity, or charm, acting as if nothing ever happened. Because erasing the past is easier for them than acknowledging it. But your memory is your shield. You're not cold, you're consistent. When friendliness fails, they try distance manipulation, withdrawing entirely and waiting for you to feel the emptiness, hoping you'll return just to relieve the discomfort. But a Stoic understands that discomfort is temporary and self-respect is permanent. After that comes the subtle smear, small comments, quiet implications, tiny seeds of doubt planted in mutual spaces so that others begin questioning you over time. But when your character is stable, no whisper can destroy what consistency protects. If undermining you socially doesn't work, they attempt emotional inversion, accusing you of doing the very things they have done, flipping the roles so aggressively that you begin questioning your own memory. But this is psychological projection, the clearest sign of someone who cannot face themselves. When inversion fails, they attempt the final mask. Humility, they apologize, admit faults, promise change, or express sudden insight. And sometimes it's genuine, but most often it's a strategic retreat, a recalibration rather than a transformation, and your task is to observe their patterns, not their words. If you still don't return, they try one last tactic, provocation. They poke at your emotions, trying to make you angry, reactive, or defensive so they can reclaim control of the narrative. But when you remain calm, the trap collapses, because nothing scares a manipulator more than someone who won't dance to their rhythm. And when all tactics fail, they reveal the truth they never wanted you to see. They need your confusion more than your presence, your doubt more than your affection, your instability more than your support. Because without your emotional energy, their influence dies. Their final stage is resignation, not acceptance, but depletion. They withdraw not because they respect your boundary, but because they can no longer penetrate it. And this is where your training meets its purpose. You outlast them by staying rooted in clarity. And eventually, when your silence becomes stronger than their patterns, they move on to someone else, repeating their cycle until they meet a person with the same clarity you've developed. And that's the moment you realize the entire journey wasn't about exposing them, but about strengthening you, because in the end, manipulation only thrives where self-ignorance lives. And once you see yourself clearly, no one can use your emotions against you again.